What is up, everyone? You know what time it is. It's Thursday night. I am joined by Kyler. Aarron couldn't be here. He had to rub shoulders and hobnob with some really important people, some sort of networking thing, he will be back hopefully next week. But I am joined by Kyler. Kyler, how are you, sir?
I am good. Long week, but always glad to be here. This is a nice break from the week. Got to find some things to talk about the Cardinals peak off season, but I think we got some good stuff planned, and hopefully you guys have a lot of good questions today.
Yeah. And tonight will be a good time for you all in the chat to get involved. We've got one topic. It's a good one, but I think an interesting one. But this is the dead time of year for NFL news cycle. June and July are dead. I see it in terms of even in terms of channel volume, views on videos and stuff, and that's just kind of it is. So we kind of just do our weekly thing, get our Cardinals fix, and get ready for the preseason when it comes around. Let's say hey to some of the folks in the chat real quick. We got Grand Iser, great support of content creators, and mentioning, Rip James Caan, rest in peace. James Caan passed away from The Godfather. I mentioned, I loved him as in the film Elf. And then, Peo saying our thumbnail hits home today, obviously our thumbnail is kind of a sort of a play on Goodfellas, which is not The Godfather that he was in, but it is the same kind, it's Godfather is adjacent, maybe, right? So kind of that whole mafia theme genre, right? Rip to James Caan, a great actor, passed away. And then we've got Aarron. Thanks for being here. Been waiting all week. So stoked to be here. Y'all make my day, Joe. Oh man, thank you. Appreciate you. You are the man. We really appreciate the support, and it means a lot to us. We've got Agent 47. Hey guys, appreciate you being here. We're definitely glad you're here with us. And Aarron's like, some of us want to talk Cardinals football 24/7, no matter what time of year. I hear you. Right. We're here to help kind of with that fix, and we've got a simple topic, though it is one that has a lot of possible discussion and talking points. The topic is, what do you want to see in the preseason from the Cardinals? What storylines, what players, what is it you want to see during the preseason? So, y'all in the chat, go ahead and get your thoughts, what you want to see. We'll get your comments up here in terms of what you want to see in the preseason. But Kyler, why don't you get us started? What's the first thing you want to see in the preseason from the Cardinals?
Well, the first thing I want to look at throughout the preseason in those 3 games, I want to see what our current or what is going to be at the time, what our cornerback depth looks like past Byron Murphy and Marco Wilson, because we're going to get at least a little bit of a sneak peek of the Josh Jackson, Antonio Hamilton, the rest of the depth chart at cornerback. Granted, we'll get to see that against other teams' second and third string type players, but at least some semblance of the type of speed we're working with, the type of coverages that Vance is going to be able to run with guys like that. I know he likes to run a lot of man-heavy stuff, but kind of questions up in the air about whether or not he has the personnel to do that this year. So I first want to take a look at that. That's where my attention's going to go immediately, is to see past the first 2 cornerbacks, what are we really working with?
Yeah, that's a great point. And Agent 47 mentioned want to see Marco Wilson. Want to see if he looks like he's taking a step forward. It'll be hard to know that till the regular season. And Lagoon Road says, preseason seems not to translate to real season. You're absolutely right. There was this great article I read a year or so ago. PFF did this where they did actually a really deep dive statistical analysis to look at how much does the preseason translate, and it doesn't. It doesn't tell you how well a player is going to play in the regular season. It doesn't tell you what you can expect from play calling. Like, they did a statistical analysis, and teams don't do the same tendencies in preseason. So in terms of those things, it doesn't translate to anything, but it does. I think there are some roster things you can get from it, right? In terms of getting a sense of how they're going to go in terms of player rotations, like you're talking about, what's the depth chart at cornerback? And I think those are the kinds of things, that I think you can see. And to kind of build on that, my kind of first point that I want to talk about is I want to see if we can get a sense for what the plan is at inside linebacker. What is that rotation? Is Zaven Collins going to be playing at the mic? Simmons playing at the will, or are we going to see a lot of vigil, right? And are they going to be playing, Zaven at the edge? There's been a lot of discussion about that, about where they're going to play or not going to play. I hope we can get a sense of what they plan to do in terms of the rotations and the distribution of snaps at inside linebacker. What do you think about that, Kyler?
I think that's a really good point. And a point well served about how little you can draw about player performance from the preseason. We've all seen that. I think 2018, the Cardinals went 4-0 in the preseason, maybe, and then 3-13 in the regular season. So,
right,
yeah, we know it means nothing. But one, it's football on the field, and we get to see something. We get to see our team again. There's something about that. So I always look forward to preseason. I'm fine with it. And like you said, it tells you something about the roster makeup of the team. And that's going to be most important with the Cardinals because historically Cliff Kingsbury isn't going to show pretty much any of his offense in the preseason. So when I was thinking about what I wanted to say tonight, I was thinking, of course, I want to see Trey McBride. I want to see how he's going to be used and things like that. But I have serious doubts that we will see much of that because Cliff Kingsbury runs the most vanilla offense he possibly can in the preseason. He said in the past that maybe he should have done a little bit more, but he didn't the next year in 2021. So I think that's just what we're going to get. But cornerback depth and inside linebacker, just position wise, like you were talking about, is important because we'll at least get some hint of, seems like Nick Vigil is going to be a signal caller. Like he has a role in this defense where he's trusted enough to be the signal caller. And that could very unfortunately be a signal of bad things to come in the season. If your Nick Vigil is the guy calling your plays and not your first round linebacker, Zaven Collins, then something to worry about.
Yeah, for sure. Real quick, I want to say hey to a couple folks who popped in here. Niner Sickness Beto's a really great dude. Going to be doing kind of a roundtable with him this season. A lot to the Cardinals fans in the chat, and one of my favorite YouTubers, Joseph. I appreciate that. Beto's a very good dude. Really, even though he's a Niners fan. And if you want to, like Payo Time, another great dude. So if you want to follow someone who does some Niners stuff, he's a great person to follow. He says, what I like to see in training camp is also in preseason games is just battles for certain positions amongst youngsters, regardless who wins or loses. I want to see technique and coaching. Yeah, and that's a great thing. That for any team, right? Niners or Cardinals, that's another thing you want to see. And those are the kinds of things you look for. But in terms of how they're going to play, yeah, I mean, you're not going to have a great sense of what they're going to do in the regular season based on that. So let's real quick. We got to and say hey to Avon Bro. Thank you for being here. Hey, I know this is off topic, but what would be a trade you would make if you were in Keim's place? What are your thoughts on that, Kyler?
Man, do you have something off the top of your head?
So this is a tough one, right? Because I've talked about this before. There are certain inflection points over the course of the calendar when trades are more likely to happen and when they don't really happen. Mm-hmm. And we're kind of at one of those places where trades don't happen much. We did just see, the Baker Mayfield trade, so there's some outliers like that, quarterback trade that, has been speculated it happened for a while. What ends up happening between now and the end of training camp, what I've often said is there are these bottom of the roster trades sometimes that happen when it gets a little bit down the road and a little bit before teams are ready to make cuts. And they're like, hey, we're going to cut this guy, but we think we might be able to trade him for a day 3 pick or trade him for a guy from another team that is also on the back end of their roster that we could use, right? Those kind of small trades. So I'm not right now going after any kind of big flashy trades. The positions where I think we need help, center, quarterback, defensive interior, they're got free agents. I would rather kind of go after that and not have to give anybody. The one trade I would be kind of open to making is if someone will give us something for Andy Isabella. And not to hate on the guy, I feel bad for him. I think he needs a new beginning somewhere else where he gets a chance to earn snaps. It just doesn't seem like this is going to be the place. So if they could trade him and get a guy who's going to be a depth piece for them at the back end of the roster, but I'm not going for anything big. So that's my thoughts on that.
No.
Yes, sir. Good.
No, that makes sense because I can't envision a trade at this point. And I can't see Andy Isabella going. I think if he was going to go at any point, it would have been before the draft. And just sort of what you pick up from that is that teams weren't interested.
Yeah.
So Andy Isabella, to me, I've said it before, I see him as a training camp cut. I don't think he'll be on the roster this upcoming season, but I don't think we're going to get anything for him either. So,
yeah,
unfortunately, he's a bust for us. I like him as a person, and I hope he lands somewhere, and I hope he has a good career. But as far as his career with the Cardinals, I think that's about over.
For sure. I'm going to say hey to a few more folks, and we'll get you the next thing you're looking for to mention. We got Paul G, a little late, but here. Appreciate you being here, Paul. We got Nutsack here. I want to see if Marquise Hayes has minimum NFL agility. Hey, Hayes is kind of a road grader at that guard position. Seems like a guy who would be a right guard, kind of power guard. But I think he's got. I'm intrigued to see what he's got. Robert Moore, appreciate you being here. Woo, I'm here. Thank you for being here. Let's see. We got Tony Height. Appreciate you, Tony. Great dude who we all follow on Twitter. You should go follow him on Twitter. He's a great follow. Just got him from work. Sorry I'm late. Hey, we're just glad you're here. We got Jay in the Bay. What's good? That's his tagline that I just sold from him. Jay, another great content creator, does 49er stuff. I've done some collabs with him. Really appreciate Jay. What's good, Joseph and Kyler? I hope all is well. When does training camp start for the AZ Cardinals? Will Kyler participate if he doesn't have a contract extension? I think, wasn't it like July 26th or 7th? I don't have the date memorized, but it's something like that.
I want to say it's the 27th.
Do you think Kyler, I mean, what do you think with the Kyler situation? Do you think he participates without a contract extension?
Well, I don't know. I'm not going to participate without a contract extension.
Yeah.
But I think
I'll tell you, I'm going to double your pay, Kyler.
Thank you. I think he does, because I think just from the general vibes of the situation lately, nothing crazy's been happening. It seems like they're at least on the same page of working towards something. If he feels like in good faith the deal's going to happen before the start of the season, I think he's there and he's participating. I don't think he'd sit out for no reason if it's just a ongoing negotiation type of thing. Now, if the talks break down, then yeah, I highly doubt he's there.
Yeah, I just don't think it's going to come to that. I think they're going to get a deal done. So I would he without it. I'm still not certain he wouldn't show up without an extension. Maybe he wouldn't. But I just don't think it's going to get to that point. I think they intend to sign him. I think it's going to happen. I think I don't think there's any panicking in the building. I think most of the anxiety has been in the fan base and the media about that.
I think that deal's done in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think so too. Let me say hey to a few more people, then we'll get your second thing, and we'll come back to some of these questions too. James Cisse, thank you for being here. What's up, family? We appreciate you being here. We got CJ Lindbergh. We'll come back to your question in a second. I know we talked about this a lot, I think a couple of streams ago, but we'll come back to this. We got Guy Willie. Appreciate you being here. And then I think that's everyone we've mentioned at least once. So I'll come back to some of your comments and questions. But what's the next thing you want to see in the preseason, Kyle?
Well, we're kind of working our way down the defense because I want to see rotationally what's going to happen on the D-line, and particularly with Rashard Lawrence and Lecky Fotu. I know we have said that you can't tell a ton about player ability during the preseason, but I would still look for Lecky Fotu and Rashard Lawrence in the run game. It has to be there. We have not added anyone of note to that position. So right now, they're kind of what we're looking at for nose tackle. So seeing them as a legitimate rotation and seeing how that works in conjunction with where does J.J. Watt go, where does Zach Allen go, those types of questions. And then the rookies, if they're playing true outside linebackers or if they're going to be playing some weird flex DE outside linebacker, all of those are cool. So we have questions all across the defense. And that kind of, I'll just go ahead and make a second point anyway, because I was going to talk about the rookies, Sanders and Cameron Thomas. That's going to be our first chance of seeing anything from them. And I know we can't tell a lot, but we can at least tell some things about what does their speed look like in an NFL game against NFL players. So there are those little things that you can garner from the first time seeing someone on a field with professional football players versus the last time you saw them in college. So just seeing them in that environment is going to be important to kind of gauge where we think Cameron Thomas and Sanders are going to actually be when the season starts.
Yeah, and I had on my list, it's kind of a part of what you were saying, is that I want to see what the pass rush rotation looks like across from Marcus Golden. We feel like Marcus Golden is the guy on one side, but what's that rotation going to be on the other side? I've been saying for a while, I think on early downs, it's going to be Kennard setting the edge against the run on running downs, but that someone is going to earn a spot on passing downs, a decent amount of snaps. They may rotate those guys. It might be one of the rookies. It might be Gardeck getting there in the mix, but I want to see how they do that rotation. And obviously the interior defensive line is definitely, something to be seen what's going to happen there. I'm pretty high on Lawrence. I think, in fact, I think that kind of segues really well to the question we had about breakout player this year, right? And I know we talked about that a lot before, but that for me would be the player I would look at. I'm gonna and if you want to mention, I'll give you a second. I'll make a point then. If you would also mention maybe one breakout player that you would. Here we go. Yeah, here's the question that you would highlight. But like going along, like we mentioned the interior defensive line, I want to also look at the other side of the ball, the interior offensive line. What is going to be going on? Who's going to be starting there? We know that the tackles are, as long as they're healthy, likely, to be Humphreys and Beachum. But obviously we don't know what's going on with Hudson, right? People, number of comments, what people want to see is they want to see Hudson playing, right? That's what we want to see. And, I'm not terribly optimistic about that. But who's going to be, is Pugh going to be the starting center? Are they going to sign a veteran like, Treader? Who's going to be playing at guard? Who's going to earn I think Hernandez will earn one of the starting guard positions. But if Pugh moves inside, who's going to be starting at the other guard position? So these, to me, that interior offensive line rotation, what they do with that is something I'd also like to see. So thoughts on that, and then a breakout player.
Yes to everything, because one of the biggest questions on the team overall is Justin Pugh going to be the starting center of the Cardinals in 2020, and was that 2022, and what does that mean? I hope not. And it's not because I don't like Justin Pugh. I actually think he's a pretty good left guard, and I think he's much maligned for no reason. He is very solid at what he does. I don't want him to be the center, though. Not when that's not a position that he has played and all of that. So I hope that one of the free agent center options is something that ends up happening. But that's a big question. That's going to have a big impact on the offense, because we saw in small portions last year what happened to the offense when Rodney Hudson was gone. And it was a totally different game.
Yeah, for sure. Real quick. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
No. Go ahead.
Oh, you were going to do your breakout player. Sorry.
I was. I've been beating the drum, I think, in probably 3 straight live streams. Rondale Moore. He's my breakout player. I've got so much faith that he's going to take over the role of Christian Kirk and beyond. I think he's going to have a really, really important role on the offense this year. He has all of the skills necessary to do it. I hope Cliff has spent the offseason thinking about ways to use a really talented second-round pick like him. to make the offense even better. So I really think he's going to have a big role, and he's going to perform really well.
Yeah, for sure. Want to say hey to us. We've got No Donnie No Donnie 8 just dropped in. What's up, Ritzy? Appreciate you being here. Thanks for being here. I want to just clear something up, something in the chat. Joseph, your background makes me think you're a Vikings fan. LOL. Yes, thought the same thing. Vikings background's cool. The red background looked like hell. All red, not very Christian-like. So let me clear this up. Those are actually blue lights, but something about my particular camera gives a little bit of a reddish to anything for whatever, something about the color saturation. I can fix it a little bit in edited videos, but live it's tricky. So it's blue, and to my eyes, it looks blue, but it looks purple because of that. But Grandizer is right, because I've tried red backgrounds and it just doesn't look good. For some reason, blue backgrounds or some hue of blue looks best. So a little behind the scenes stuff. But we've got a question. Peo always comes with good questions. So we got a question from Peo. Who on the Cardinals is in a prove it year, as in they could be cut midseason or next year unless they perform at a high level? What do you think, Kyler?
Man, someone that could be cut that's on that much of a hot seat. That's,
or he says or next year.
I'm not sure if this is totally in line with his question, but AJ Green.
Okay.
And I feel like that's not a great answer, because regardless of performance, this is probably his last year on the team, just because of age and the arc of his career and where he's at. So I probably didn't give you a really good answer, but AJ Green, at least in the minds of fans, is still on the edge. I think the team, the organization, probably doesn't feel that way at all.
Yeah. I'm going to go with, and it's not someone who's going to be cut, but someone who would not be extended. And I think that's probably Peo probably would not here next season, probably. I actually think a guy who is in a prove it year is Byron Murphy Jr., end of his rookie deal. Mm-hmm. He needs, he's been up and down. He's been good as a slot corner, struggled on the outside, had moments. I think he needs to show that, he's worth keeping around, or, as a number, at least a number 2 corner. I don't think he's a number 1. I think he's best suited as a slot or a number 2 outside corner. They need someone, but are they going to pay him? Are they going to, extend him, or are they going to let him hit free agency? I think how he plays this year really is kind of going to matter a lot for his future here.
Yep.
So, let's see. I want to make sure. So, what was your next? Actually, I'm going to go with one right now. This one is pretty straightforward, but in general, I just want to see which rookies are popping. I realize that, like we talked, like it's been pointed out, like preseason performance does not translate to regular season performance. However, I do believe with rookies and younger players, you want to see them flash that potential upside. Young players will be inconsistent, but I think you want to see them flash, right? Like with Kyler Murray, we saw flashes with him his rookie year, right? And you want to see that with rookies. So I want to see who's popping, who's making plays, who's showing that what they can do. Obviously that doesn't mean they're going to do it this year, but that shows you kind of what kind of upside they might actually have, playing in the NFL.
Yeah. That's a good point. We will see a lot of Trey McBride in the preseason. I feel pretty confident on that. You're not going to throw Zach Ertz out there very often. And Max Williams will most likely still be probably on the PUP list. So we will see a lot of Trey McBride. So that'll be nice to at least see him on the field, kind of gauge his speed, his route running, and all those sort of things. And other rookies that I think would be really important to see how they're used and just how they perform in an NFL environment are the late round offensive linemen like Marquise Hayes and Lacita Smith, to see if there's even a flash of potential there for a future offensive lineman for the Cardinals, because after this season, none of the starting lineup is under contract. There's going to be a ton of questions about the offensive line going into 2023. DJ Humphries very well might sign an extension at some point this year. I think he probably does, because as he has pointed out, left tackles don't grow on trees. So he probably does get an extension, but as it stands right now, none of them are under contract. We don't have a starting offensive line next year. So to see at least flashes of potential in those rookies is kind of comforting, that there are options there, and we can breathe a little bit easier. So I'm looking at them. I like Lasita Smith a lot. I really want to see how he's used, but Marquise Hayes being talked about so often in that center role, I want to see if they roll him out at center at any point during the preseason and see what that looks like.
Interesting take here. And I don't think Simon's necessarily wrong. Hot take, hate to say it, but I think Zaven Collins is in a prove it year. If he doesn't perform, I think it's prudent for the Cards to think about moving him. When you say moving him, like trying to get rid of him or move him to edge, but I do think it is a little, I've preached patience with Collins. Like, I'm going to give a player on the rookie year a pass, a redshirt year. I know you don't want that, but I'm never going to call someone a bust the rookie year. I just want to see year 2 or 3, but you need to see him playing a significant, if he's not playing like 700 snaps plus this year at inside linebacker, or becoming a full-time edge, I prefer inside linebacker, then I'm concerned, right? So I do think it's kind of a make it year for him. So, and no, Donnie agrees, right? So yeah, I would say that. So thoughts on that, and then maybe your next thing you want to see in the preseason.
Zaven Collins going to be under a lot of pressure this year. I don't think there's any way around it. I'm really interested to see if he is going to be the play caller or if it's going to be someone else. If it's going to be a Nick Vigil who gets significant playing time, or even Buda Baker, someone more proven on the defense and a more veteran leadership role. I hope that he stays in the middle linebacker position. I hope he calls plays. I hope that is his role with the team, because that's super valuable and it makes where he was taken make sense and worth it to the team. But he is, I get the feeling that he is under a crushing amount of pressure right now, from inside the building and from fans. So whether or not he can handle that, that's a question. Everyone has their limits of how much pressure they can handle. So I would at least, I know social media is fun to just vent everything that you want, but having occasionally interacted with some people on social media, they see stuff, and I don't think it's fair for us to be awful to them. Let's say it in a nice way. So be cognizant of how you speak about people, because they are human beings who play football for a living, and we just get to sit back in our houses and go after them for it.
For sure, yeah. And I am always, when I talk about players, I always try to be. You'll never hear me say a player is trash. I won't call a human being trash unless they are legitimately a horrible human being, right? I will say he's not playing well. I get that fans get emotional, but absolutely, I'm completely with you on that. It's absolutely fair to talk about a player's performance, but as a human, we treat everyone with respect, right? As long as they are decent humans. So yeah, we got a comment. Zaven is going to do what he does best and go off of reactions and his athleticism, shooting gaps and dropping back. Someone else will be the signal caller, etc. And I could see that. I mean, and maybe. If as long as he's playing and making plays, I don't hate that if someone else is doing that, at least for a while. But he showed potential. Like when we talk about players popping, he had moments where you saw what he could be. So, what did you have another thing you're looking for in the preseason?
Yeah, last thing that I'm going to be looking for really hard, Benjamin. We talk about him a lot. I know Aarron does. He's a big Eno Benjamin fan. I am as well. Big ASU Sun Devils guy. So go Sun Devils. But Eno Benjamin, he's going to probably get a lot of those snaps in preseason, I'd imagine. James Conner, you're not going to run him out there for most of preseason, but that probably means we'll see Eno Benjamin in a number one role in the offense through preseason. And that's going to be really valuable to see if what Kingsbury and Pugh and other of his teammates have talked about over this offseason, that he has put in an incredible amount of work. He's taken a leap forward past what we even thought. So I want to see that for myself. And I hope it's true, because I would love for Eno Benjamin to be the number 2 to James Conner. So I want to get a little hint of that. And I want to see Eno out on the field a lot in preseason.
Yeah. I mean, they, like you said, they've been talking him up. I would imagine we'll see a lot of them, and I'm eager to see what he does. Right. And he looked good last preseason. Right. And when he got the ball in the regular season at points, he looked good. So I'm eager to see more of that. Absolutely. The last thing I'm going to mention that I'm eager to see is, and this is going to be weird, but it's going to be a callback to something I talked about last preseason. You may recall this. I want to see who is not getting snaps. Because that tells you something, and it tells you one of two things. There are players who are not getting snaps because they're locked to make the roster. Last year, Christian Kirk didn't get many preseason snaps.
Yeah.
And there might have even been a few people who wondered, does that mean he's not going to be a big part of the offense? Well, he was a big part of the offense, and Jacksonville paid him a ton of money because, that, or because they want him to be a big part of their offense. So if someone is not getting snaps, it's either because they're a lock in terms of they're going to make the roster, and the Cardinals know what their role is, right? They have their role for them. They don't need to see anything from them. So they want to see other guys. Or if they're a bubble player and they're not getting snaps, it means they probably don't have much of a chance of making the roster, because similarly, there were some players like Michael Manet who didn't get any snaps, a center, and then he ended up getting cut and didn't even stick around, on the practice squad, and he was not getting snaps. And I saw that. It's like, he's not going to make I don't think he's going to make the roster. Right. So I want to see who is not getting snaps. Is because, for example, like, listen, and you mentioned him earlier, and, Elawan saying Rondale Moore about to go off. If Rondale Moore, if we don't see him in the preseason much, if we only see him for a little bit in the first game, but we just don't see much of him thereafter, that tells me they know what they're doing with him and his role is set. If we see more of him, it doesn't mean he's on the bubble. It means they're still maybe working out what his role is going to be a little bit, in my opinion, right? But in particular, some of those guys on the back end of the roster, guys they've signed, Neiman and the cornerback Jackson they signed, and players like that, you want to see snaps from them. If you don't, then that's maybe a concern. So, that's the last thing I want to see, is who's not getting snaps.
Now that's a super good point. I really had not thought of it that way. So that's awesome, because that brings me back to what I was saying about Lestita Smith and Marquise Hayes. If we don't see them at all being the 6th, 7th round type guys, I mean, it might be like Michael Manet being a late round guy that didn't end up making the team. So that's super interesting.
I think we'll see both of those guys a lot, because I think they're trying to decide. I think those guys, they're trying to figure out if they're going to make the roster or be practice squad guys. I bet we'll see both of those guys quite a bit, for sure. Yeah. I want to say hey to a couple of folks who just jumped in. Damn, it's been a while. Love from the European watching it. Hey, we appreciate you staying up here that late. And I've often said, we got another person who was in here from Ecuador, commented earlier. I've coined the term the Cardinals diaspora for those of us who do not live in Arizona. I'm originally from there, don't live there. Kyler has lived there, but doesn't now. From Europe, Ecuador, Brazil, wherever you're from, if you're a Cardinals fan, we are glad you're with us. You're part of the Cardinals diaspora. So appreciate that. We got Gear 3 AMV. What about Hudson? Oh, man. I think I don't feel good about that one. There's a lot of there's deafening silence, and I feel like it's, a Malcolm Butler situation, maybe not exactly the same details of it, but where I just don't think he'll be back. It'd be great if he is. I just don't see it. So,
yeah.
So those are a lot of things that we're looking for. Maybe we'll just kind of get a few of the comments in the chat in here and questions. Let's see, going through here. Aaron, we got a comment here. I think when C-Hop comes back, Hollywood will be taking snaps for more. I see more getting between 600 and 700 yards. What do you think? What are you thinking about how the receivers are going to kind of shape up? That's an interesting one too. Like how are the snaps and the targets, going to be divvied up? Do you think?
It's so hard to tell because we basically have 2 seasons in one. We have the first 6 weeks where Hollywood Brown is our number 1 wide receiver, and we're running in that. And I still think that even without D-Hop, that's a pretty good offense overall. With Kyler Murray, Hollywood Brown, A.J. Green, Rondale Moore. That's pretty good. But then you add D-Hop back, who, lest we forget, just because he missed some of last season, is the top 5 wide receiver in the league. I am sure he would argue he is the best wide receiver in the league. So we have these 2 different seasons to work with. So we are going to see a shift. We have to, because you don't have a guy like Hop on your team and not send the ball to him a lot, because that's what he's there for. But the amount of comfort that Kyler Murray has with each receiver is going to be sort of this key factor. We know he's comfortable with D-Hop because he had a giant 1,400-yard season his first year with us, and has to be one of the easiest receivers in the league to throw to, considering who his quarterbacks have been, like Larry Fitzgerald. We know he's comfortable with Hollywood Brown. Granted, they haven't played together in an NFL environment, but they're best friends pretty much. So I'm sure they have a comfort level and they work out together a lot. Rondale Moore, it seemed to me like he was growing in a comfort level with Rondale until about week 12, and then we kind of stopped seeing him out on the field for some reason. Maybe it was an injury we didn't know a whole lot about or something like that.
He was banged up a little towards the end.
Yeah. But I think he's going to be comfortable with Rondale, and he's going to appreciate that type of speed. A.J. Green is the odd man out in the equation to me. He's going to be there. He's still going to get some respect over on the other side of the field because he is who he is. You can't forget about him, and he is a really big body in end zone and red zone situations. But I think A.J. Green is the odd man out in this equation, and Rondale Moore is going to get a lot more touches and touches further down the field than he did last year. So 600 to 700 yards, if everything is efficient and Kyler Murray's getting the ball around, that's a fine season. Now, if he is a huge part of the offense and he's only getting 600 or 700 yards, then we need to panic. But I think that's a fine over-under range for Rondale Moore because that's kind of just his role in the slot.
Yeah, for sure. And it is going to be interesting. It's going to be a tale of 2 seasons in some way, because with Hopkins out, I think Hollywood and A.J. Green lining up on the outside, Rondale Moore in the slot, going a lot more tight, with a lot more sets with the tight end in there. If they do go 4 wide receiver sets, then they might, there's a question, do they put Wesley outside and put Brown in the slot, or do they keep Brown outside and bring Dortch in? There's some questions like that, some wrinkles. But later in the season, then it's Hopkins and then A.J. Green and Brown kind of rotating on the outside, perhaps across from him, and then in the slot, Rondale and Hollywood. And I think, then the touches and the snaps become much more hard to come by for guys deeper on the roster like Wesley and Dortch, unless there's an injury. Yeah. Right. So for sure. This is a question obviously in the news. What are your thoughts on Baker Mayfield now with Carolina Panther possibly playing versus the Cardinals on October 2nd? Panthers have had our numbers for the last several games. What do you think about that?
Well, they have. Some of the most painful losses in the last 7 years have come from the Panthers. It's still hard to watch the last episode of All or Nothing. I can't do it. You just stop before before the last episode because it's too much. I think it gives us a better chance of beating the Panthers. Cam has some type of weird magic against the Cardinals, and he came in even last year fresh back with the Panthers and destroyed us. And Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray is 2-0 against his old Oklahoma teammate. So I'm not going to say it makes him easier to beat, but I do think that the general confusion and chaos going on over in Carolina just bodes well for us. Hopefully that becomes a win and we kind of break this record. And I'd love to see Kyler Murray be 3-0 against Baker. That'd be fun.
Yeah, it's kind of that immovable object faces off against an irresistible force, right? Because on one side we haven't been able to beat the Panthers recently, but Baker can't beat Kyler, it seems, right?
Which one?
So maybe that undefeated against Mayfield trumps the Carolina. Listen, I'm not trying to speak this in this existence. Watch it be a tie, right? Because the universe does not want either. Can't tolerate, cannot abide the Cardinals beating the Panthers, but it also cannot abide Mayfield beating Kyler. So I am now predicting. I hate to say, oh man, I'm sorry everyone, but a tie, right? That's what the universe says. Watch that be the case. Anyway, yeah, I mean, but I think it's a good move for the Panthers. A 5th round pick, was it, for former number 1 overall pick? I know Baker Mayfield has not necessarily been, an all pro caliber quarterback, not a guy, that they were willing, that they extended, but he has been better than anyone else that they've had in the Matt Rule era in terms of, his track record. Darnold has not played well anywhere at any point. And Mayfield is a quarterback with limitations. You have to build an offense that plays to his strengths, which the Browns did. They did a lot of bootleg, let him play one side of the field, and it worked well. But I think that I think he's going to be better than what they've had, and I think it's a good trade. I think he's going to set the world on fire? No. But I think that it's going to be the best quarterback play they've had. And Matt Rule, talking about hot seats, that that's a guy he needs that to keep that job there. So absolutely. So we're going to go a little bit shorter tonight than we normally do. We're getting close to the 45-minute mark. A lot of great questions and comments. Definitely appreciate everyone who's being here. We'll maybe take one more comment or one more question, and then we'll kind of go. Wait, here we go. No. TCR declares a tie, Cardinals versus Panthers 10-2. Mark it down, folks. Put in the book 27-27, right? Yeah, we'll see, right? Yeah, and there we go. Carolina needs to get Rosen now to complete the draft collection for that year, right?
They do,
100%. So, that's
That's a good one. That's funny.
Yeah. So why don't we kind of wrap this up? Kyler, why don't you let folks know where to find you if you got anything going on, anything you want to kind of promote. Let everyone know what's going on.
Yeah, of course. So you guys can find me on Twitter as always. It's now just my name, Kyler Burd, but you can find me at the same whatever it's called at AZCard_Birdseye. So talk about Cardinals a lot there, mostly Cardinals, but you'll also see a lot of Arizona State stuff sprinkled in. I have been managing the Devils in Detail site for Fansided, just like Aarron does, who's usually here for Raising Zona. So writing about Arizona State, graduate of there, love the teams, having a lot of fun writing about them. If any of you guys are graduates, fans of Arizona State, and have opinions, which you probably do, considering conference realignment is heating up yet again. Maybe we'll be in the Big 12 in a couple of weeks. We'll see. If you're interested in that and you want to have an opinion and get it out there, go ahead and contact me on Twitter, and I can get you set up and you can start sharing those opinions.
Awesome. And real quick, Grounders, thank you. Have a good night as well. We appreciate you. And Carol, thank you for the kind words. Yeah, we appreciate this. And it's been a joy to be able to make content and get to know folks and, have folks who are part of this community. So we definitely appreciate you guys. So yeah, you all know where to find me. Obviously the Cardinal Rule. Follow me on Twitter at Jocomo13. Also, I started a second YouTube channel, sports YouTube channel, for content that is not Cardinals centric. You're going to be probably mostly just live streams and hangouts. And I'm actually having my first live stream on that other channel. It's called Talking Sports Ball, just a general sports chat. So check that out, that second channel. I've got links in the Discord. I'll post it on the community. I'm going to post information for it on my community tab. But if you haven't already done so, please go subscribe to my Talking Sports Ball YouTube channel. And I'm going to be doing a live stream tomorrow night, where we're just hanging out. I've got a longtime friend of mine who's going to join me, and it's going to be a lot more kind of laid back, fun, talking all sports, not Cardinals specifically. So check that out if you want to hang out. It should be fun. Yeah, and please do us a favor, click like on the video. That helps a lot, and comment on the videos. We appreciate that. So thank you all for being here. Hopefully I can see some of y'all on my live stream tomorrow night on my other channel. But of course we'll also see you next week. Go Cards. Thank you for being here. Lorenzo Barro, thank you. Calvin, thank you for being here. So appreciate everyone. As always, I'm going to go and put up my shout out to the channel members to thank them for their support. And we will see you tomorrow night at my other live stream, and we'll see you all next week for the Cardinal Rule. Peace, everyone. And here we go.